My name is Paige Risser, the Director of Communications and Marketing for IU South Bend. And on behalf of my colleagues, I'd like to welcome you to what we expect will be a very informative hour. This is the first in a series of 4 events of similar format that will be held every Thursday at 5 p.m. through August 13th. Today's video Q&A is being recorded and will be available on IU South Bend's YouTube channel after this for anytime viewing for those who can't attend our Thursday sessions. Our time together today will offer you the opportunity to hear from IU South Bend leadership on a broad range of topics relevant to returning to campus this fall. Some of you have already submitted questions when you registered, and we will address those. If you'd like to submit a question during our time together today, please do so via the chat button at the bottom of your screen in the center. Additionally, if there are participants tonight who require Spanish language or closed captioning accommodations, please also connect with us via the chat function, and we will make sure to assist. Today we have with us campus leaders from academics, student services, housing, facilities, and financial aid who are here to provide updates about the fall semester and answer as many questions as we can. For those questions we may not be able to answer, we will provide answers in upcoming communications and on Iusb's Fall 2020 Campus Update website. Now, I'd like to introduce Araceli Lepe Moreno for an additional welcome.
Para los estudiantes y los padres que hablan español, la Universidad de Indiana South Bend y su servidora, la señora Araceli Lepe Moreno, les quiere dar la bienvenida a nuestro evento informativo de hoy. Este es uno de 4 eventos que vamos a tener los jueves. Este evento también va a ser grabado, por si usted no tiene tiempo de verlo hoy, lo puede mirar a la hora que usted pueda. Nosotros sabemos que muchos de ustedes tienen preguntas acerca del regreso a la universidad de este otoño y es por eso que un comité de expertos, profesores, administradores, estamos aquí para poder contestarle todas sus preguntas. Sepan y siéntanse seguros que la universidad tiene un personal bilingüe y todos estamos aquí para ayudarles. Si usted prefiere hacer una pregunta en español, entonces usted la puede escribir en el chat de abajo y con mucho gusto podemos contestar sus preguntas. Ahora regresamos con Paige para que podamos empezar nuestro evento.
Thank you, Araceli. And next, please welcome Kathy Buckman, Associate Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management, to offer remarks this evening as well.
Well, hi, I'm Kathy Buckman, and I'd like to begin by telling you that our Chancellor, Chancellor Susan Elrod, loves to participate in these types of virtual events. So if you'd like to hear directly from her, she'll probably be on the virtual stage at one of the next Q&A sessions. As was mentioned, we're hosting these every Thursday until mid-August. Unfortunately, she had a conflict this week, so she asked me to deliver this message on her behalf. She wanted me to share a little bit about IUSB's approach to the 2021 academic year. So our priorities for the year are simple: the health and safety of the IU South Bend community and making sure students can continue to receive a quality IU education. Our faculty are putting in a great deal of time and effort this summer, developing quality course content and instructional practices for a range of delivery methods. And all of our student services are prepared to support students this fall, whether it be in person or online. For those of you planning to be on campus, a variety of measures are being put in place to ensure health and safety. Among these are providing and requiring cloth face coverings for all students, faculty, staff, and visitors, enacting rigorous cleaning procedures, and reducing the number of people who would be on campus in classrooms at any one time. Signage will inform you about public health guidance and any restrictions in place. Additionally, all IU students, faculty, and staff will have access to a virtual symptom checker, virtual screening, and COVID-19 testing if needed. All members of the IU community will also need to review and sign an agreement committing to individual safety practices before returning to campus. We want to assure you that IU is carefully monitoring the global pandemic and will be prepared to alter how courses are delivered should the need arise for the safety and health of the IU South Bend community. We're committed to keeping you informed of any updates that may occur, and will continue to communicate with you in the weeks and the months ahead. And with this, we hope we've set your mind at ease that we are managing this situation with health and safety at the forefront. If the situation changes, we're prepared to adjust accordingly. So now I'd like to take just a few minutes to shift from the health and safety and pandemic and talk just a little bit about college. Like so many others who have spent their entire lives working in higher education, I believe wholeheartedly in the value of a college degree and the difference that it can make to an individual and to a family. So first of all, I'd like to congratulate you for making the decision to continue your education, especially given these challenging times. Truly, you've taken an important step towards a degree, a career, and a rich and rewarding life. And when I say a rich and rewarding life, I really don't mean in terms of money or of income earned. Although I will tell you that the average four-year college graduate will earn $1 million more in his or her lifetime than a person with just a high school diploma. And that $1 million opens up all kinds of opportunities in terms of recreation and hobbies and travel when we feel better about traveling, and general health and happiness. But what I really mean when I say a rich and rewarding life is more about how the world opens up, expands, and opens up to you as you go through college, how you're exposed to new and different people and ideas and possibilities for how you will live your life to the fullest. Now, I'm not completely sure that I'm attributing this next statement to the right person, but I believe it was one of my favorite professors, Dr. April Ladinsky, who said that college is a place where you can become the person you want to be. And for many people, college is a place where you discover the person you could be. Now, those of us who work in higher education, we know this to be true. We see it happen all the time. And often we're able to see strengths and talents and characteristics in students that sometimes they don't even see in themselves, yet anyway. And that gets our hearts racing because we know that with commitment and effort, you can bring out the best aspects of yourself, which leads to a more successful and fulfilling life. And that's what we want for you. As an Iusb student, each of you will have access to a team to support you in your journey, an academic advisor, a success coach, a financial aid counselor, career counselors, tutors, and above all, an incredible faculty to teach and to mentor you. College is a remarkable opportunity. We hope you take advantage of it. We hope you will make the most of it. And we will be here to partner with you every step of the way. We miss being with our students. We look forward to having everyone back on campus when the time is right. And in the meantime, we'll do what we need to do to keep moving forward. We're glad to have you with us. Not only will we get through this strange period in our history together, but we will learn and we will grow from it. And we won't just be waiting around for it to pass. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Paige to begin the question and answer session.
Thank you, Kathy, for those lovely remarks. All right, so our first question is about class modes and the determining factor to decide if a class is in person or online. So I'm going to ask Doug McMillan to take that. And I just wanted to also to clarify that the chat will go, the name of the chat is Office of the Chancellor. So that's who you'll be chatting your questions to at the bottom there. So, Doug.
Yeah, so with respect to the determining factor with respect to how classes would be person or online, it really came down to a balance of safety and also meeting the educational needs of our students. And we basically received about 5 class formats from IU, and working through IU and Academic Affairs, the office that I reside in. We worked with the academic units, various colleges and schools, and gave some parameters, and then we allowed the faculty to work within their departments as well as their colleges to determine if they will be doing online offerings versus face-to-face. And so part of this was, what are the learning outcomes for my course? And can these learning outcomes be done better face-to-face, or can they be done better online? If they can be done similarly, would it be better for our department and our students to be online? And also the departments were looking for a balance of face-to-face, excuse me, as well as online classes. And so they worked through the departments and worked through their colleges and schools and put together then what they wanted to do for the fall 2020 semester. We received a breakdown of the course distributions, and from my examination of that, it looked pretty good to me. About a third of our courses will continue to be face-to-face, but these will include reduced classroom occupancy to meet social distancing requirements, and of course requiring wearing a face mask, which will be required in all of our buildings. And about 20% of our courses will be online asynchronous. That is, there's no set time for lectures, but there are deadlines for viewing lectures, engaging in classroom discussions, review of reading, submission of assignments, and exams. We also offer online synchronous courses. That's about 10% of our offerings, where faculty and students meet online at certain days at certain times. So it's like a face-to-face class, except it's done virtually. And then the rest of the class formats are hybrid. So they're like combination of those that we just talked about. But overall, as we evaluate it in terms of safety as well as meeting the learning outcomes for our students, we wanted to make sure that we still provided a quality education that we expected from an IU degree, and to meet the needs of our students as well as the schools and colleges.
All right, thank you, Doug. Our next question involves housing and asks specifically about the due date for canceling housing, but if you could, I'm going to ask Scott Strittmatter, our Director of Housing and Student Life, to give us a little bit of an overview of what housing will look like, but specifically answering the question about the due date for canceling housing. If you could, Scott, find you to spotlight you here.
We may have just lost.
Oh, I think we did lose Scott.
Monica, maybe could take this one.
That would be great. Monica, I will.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The question is, what will housing look like for the fall, but specifically when there might be a due date to cancel.
Currently, we are looking at, as it relates to housing, the due date, we're receiving applications now until they're filled. And so all are welcome to apply that are interested in applying. As it relates to cancellation, we're trying to, we're looking at being a little bit more flexible in the cancellation of housing. And I guess it really depends on the purpose of canceling housing. But we're looking all the way up until when the students actually, the first day of school, being able to cancel without any penalties. And then we're actually exploring extending cancellation deadlines at this present time as well.
Thank you, Monica. Looks like Scott is back with us. So Scott, maybe you could give us a little bit more of an overview of how housing will be well, did he make it back in?
I am here. Yep.
Oh, there you are. Okay, let me find you so I can spotlight you. Well, while I'm looking for you, if you could give us an overview of how housing is going to look this fall in general.
So we've been working probably since April on how are we going to open housing safely for the coming year. And so we've been working with our IU emergency management team, as well as our facility folks and our health and wellness center. And so our housing is going to open where we have an advantage compared to most campuses, where our apartment style setup allows us to actually be more safe, because each resident gets their own bedroom, and the bathrooms that they use, they're only sharing it with one other person at most. And so right there, we've kind of already have these spaces that reduce these interactions. And so, and then each unit has its own HVAC system that's not connected to the hallway or to other apartments. So again, the physical environment of our apartments are already very physically safe. I apologize if you can hear my dog. The adventures of Zoom meetings. But our apartments are already set up to provide a very safe environment that is reducing interactions and exposure. And so then we're instituting some other policies to kind of encourage the social distancing. So there will be no outside guests allowed in housing, no overnight guests, no outside guests in housing. We're limiting the occupancy of apartments where people can't have more than 2 guests at a time inside the apartment. And that would only be housing, like other housing students. So there's no outside guests. That being said, if somebody wants to, if their parents come by or they need to study, they can reserve space in the community building so that that they can meet with those folks. But we're not allowing any, we're really limiting the interactions inside the buildings. But the biggest thing is that we're going to need the help of our community to keep our community safe. And that's our students wearing masks where they should be, that they are limiting their exposure, that they're not going to high risk events or activities that they might be exposed. And what we have found is that our students are actually very caring and very empathetic. And so we're really encouraged by that. And so those are some of the things that students can look forward to this fall. Did that answer the question, Paige?
Yes, thank you, Scott. All right, our next question involves facilities that are on campus and which ones will be open. Gym, the library, the food court. So I'm going to ask Elizabeth Pace, our Chief of Staff, to answer that question.
Yes, we are working actively on coming up with operating hours for all of our facilities, and we envision having a special page on the fall 2020 IU South Bend site in the coming week or two that where we'll update all of that, so you have us up to date on what's open and what the operating hours are.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I guess I could have stayed with you, Scott. I have another question about housing, specifically about refunds for if campus happens to close again. Are there refunds for a portion of the semester that wasn't used?
Yeah. I can't give a definitive answer for that. This is one of those questions like where it is affecting all of the IU campus housing. So Bloomington, IUPUI, and Southeast. I will say that for the most part, I know that we are, I would expect that if we closed campus, in most scenarios, there would be a refund involved with that. I can't say for certain in every circumstance that it would happen. But I can confidently say that I think in most circumstances, students could expect a refund if we were to close campus housing.
Scott, I have another one on housing. If a student cancels for fall and wants to live in housing in the spring only, would they have priority? Do we know that?
So if they cancel in the fall and they would want to live there in the spring, what would happen is that once our spring contract is posted, they would need to reapply. And so that was where the priority would come from, is just when they turned in their application. Because essentially once they cancel their current contract, that would cancel their priority.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I'm going to ask another question of our Executive Vice Chancellor for, I'm sorry, Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Doug McMillan, about the academic calendar. Can you give us an overview of the academic calendar for this year?
So basically, the typical semester is 16 weeks for IU, and in fact for most universities. And so typically we begin the 3rd week of August and we end in the 2nd week of December. And so when we were considering how the calendar will look for fall, we did have a variety of options. And IU South Bend and the faculty chose to maintain our calendar, our 16-week calendar, as our default. However, there will be some modifications, including that we will have classes in session on Labor Day, and there will be no fall break. And then the Thanksgiving break, instead of being 3 days, is going to now be, in fact, a week-long break. And we're going to have a transition at that point. So most of our courses, regardless of what format they are in, up to Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving, we're going to pivot to fully online. So all classes will be online that span that entire 16-week semester. We will have some classes that end at 13 weeks, so right before the week before Thanksgiving. And we do have some classes that are 8 weeks, and we typically had those anyway. But beginning that, or after Thanksgiving, we will be fully online. And part of this reason is because as we've seen so far, for example, after July 4th, there is a peak in cases of COVID-19 because of the interactions that occur over these type of holidays. And also it'd be during the flu season. So we want to simply mitigate health issues by pivoting to those online classes after Thanksgiving. And in the spring semester, we will start January 19th, so a little bit of a delay than typical. But again, we're going to start online, and then we're going to pivot to other class formats beginning February 8th. So that's going to give us a window there, hopefully, that we will not be impacted significantly by COVID-19 cases. And in terms of our courses that we're offering, in terms of course formats, I talked about that earlier. We're face-to-face courses are going to be about a third. Then our online asynchronous courses are where basically you're completing your work on your working with a faculty member, but there's no face-to-face meetings at a certain time and place. That's about 20%. And then distance, basically online synchronous. So where you're meeting with a faculty member, but simply virtually, that's about 9%. And then the hybrid courses will make up the remaining 30% or so. So that's going to be the semester we have at this point. We have to monitor this because we have to pay attention in terms of what's going on in our larger community. As we probably know, right now, this area, including St. Joe County, Elkhart, Marshall County, we are one of the 2 hotspots in the state of Indiana. And we're hoping that this will decline and not get worse as we go through the next 2 or 3 weeks. But if there is a situation, for example, that the county goes down to another lockdown, then we will in fact start the semester perhaps using online courses. But given where we are at this point and the likelihood that we may see a decline in cases since we're getting further away from the July 4th break, our plan at this point is to start with the course calendar that we have in place.
Thanks, Doug. I'm going to stay with you for another question about classes. And someone is wondering if a class starts online, can it then change to an in-person class?
Absolutely. So for example, one of the considerations that we've talked about earlier is that there may be some issues associated with Labor Day, right? Because we have people getting together, so there could be a spike. So we could start off, say, the first 3 weeks as an online course and then pivot back to the original format of that course that the faculty member had in place. So we're going to try to be very fluid because the situation we're in is in fact fluid. And so we want to be able to make these decisions as we go along. And we would like to maintain, the course structures that we have now because they've been well thought out by the faculty. But all of our faculty have been prepared to pivot to online courses. We have actually been using our University Center of Excellence in Teaching to help get our faculty prepared to offer the courses and to meet the learning outcome of those courses, regardless of the format they are in. And perhaps maybe we can allow Carolyn Schultz, our director of our University Center on Excellence in Teaching, to talk about some of the activities that have in fact been going on.
Thanks, Doug. Just to clarify something you said, if a course is listed as an online course, it's going to stay an online course for the whole semester. It's possible a face-to-face in-person class could pivot to an online class depending on local conditions, but the online classes are going to stay online the whole time. So, and we have many people that were already used to teaching online before COVID hit, and so they've been really excellent online teachers to begin with. And we've had more than 100 faculty go through an intensive series of workshops this summer at the University Center for Excellence in Teaching to prepare for whatever happens in the fall. And so in the spring, we had this emergency pivot, and we just did the best that we could under these really extreme circumstances with very little time to prepare. But we are ready for the fall. We are ready for whatever comes in the fall, and we have people that are going to be much more comfortable teaching online and have much more interactive courses planned for you.
Thank you, Carolyn. We had a question about whether this session is being recorded, and yes, it is being recorded, and we will have it on our YouTube channel for future viewing. And certainly if there are those you know of who would like to watch it who couldn't join us today, please let them know. And we will have 3 more after tonight, next Thursday, and then the 2 Thursdays following through August 13th at 5 p.m. So we will make sure that we alert our audiences about that going forward. Okay, I wanted to ask our Director of Facilities, Mike Prater, if he would speak a little bit about some of the work that he and his team are doing to make the campus safe in terms of de-densifying, cleaning, and those types of things.
Yes, we have worked this summer to get the campus cleaned and reset. We are looking at all of the academic spaces, all of the gathering spaces, all of the dining areas, any place where students might be, so that we can set up the most socially responsible and healthy environment with the respect to social distancing and allowing for the students to have a place to accomplish whether they need to attend a class in person, the chairs are and the furniture has been spaced out. If they need an area that has Wi-Fi or computer connections so that they can attend one of their Zoom classes between their in face-to-face classes, or if they just need a place that they can meet up with somebody that they are currently in, sorry, I'm struggling with this. Somebody that they are currently family members, close friends in their small community, so that you're not totally isolated on campus, but you have those areas that you can get together with your small groups and not necessarily create something that is going to create a health hazard. My staff will continue to hit all the high touch surfaces multiple times during a day. They will catch the doorways, they will be in the restrooms. We will go through classrooms and take care of them. And if we do have areas that are suspect or need additional cleaning, we are prepared to do that either through our staff or through local contracts that we have to bring everything back into line and to best guarantee the safety of our students.
Thank you, Mike. I know your team is working really hard, as is everybody. All right, we have got a question about policies. Has IU South Bend identified which policies will be adapted if we are required to transition to full virtual instruction? Grading policies, refund policies, et cetera. And will the university communicate these policies to students and their families prior to the start of the fall semester? And ask Elizabeth to to take that one?
So as you can imagine, there are variety of scenarios that could come with having to go online at different points in the semester. And so it would depend on the circumstance. And different policies would depend on the circumstances of a transition to remote learning. And we would work to communicate with students and families as soon as possible based on those circumstances.
Thanks, Elizabeth. All right, what happens to scholarship money if that money exceeds the student's bill? I'm going to send this one to our Director of Scholarships, Lori Williams, and Financial Aid, Lori Williams.
Hi, everyone. So if your scholarship or any funding exceeds your bursar bill, that funds, as long as it is refundable, will be refunded to you through your bursar. And what I mean by if it's eligible for that, some scholarships are set up to pay tuition and fees only. So if it is set up that that scholarship will only pay for those charges, those will not be refunded to you. However, other funding that you may have received that also Pell Grants, perhaps you got other scholarships that allow release, those would be released. We would first pay your tuition and fees based on the funding source that is set up to only pay those, and then go into the other funding sources.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question about masks. Do we have to wear masks in class? And what about anywhere else on campus? Doug McMillan, would you like to take that one, please?
Yes. Yeah, we will, so, you know, because this is for the safety of our greater community, not only for your own personal protection, but the protection of those that are around you. And so cloth mask will be required covering your nose and your mouth in all campus buildings. So hallways, elevators, classrooms, even common areas. And in spaces where physical distancing is very difficult to maintain, then including outdoor spaces, you will be required on campus, in fact, to wear a mask. So this is for the protection of not only yourself, but also others, because 30 to 40% of people infected with the COVID-19 virus are asymptomatic, but yet can transmit the virus to others. So, and it's been demonstrated that these masks are very good in terms of reducing at least the opportunity for this virus to be spread to others. Now, in addition to wearing masks, basically all students are going to be asked to sign a student commitment form. In fact, you'll be required to do so. I encourage all students to read this because it has some very good information in there. And part of that's going to ask you to, you wear that cloth mask, and also to practice personally good hygiene. That is, wash your hands and make sure you're using your fingertips clean, and that's where you touch things. So there's videos on the IU website that show you proper hand washing, for example. And you may say, who needs that? But if you go look, you'll see, oh, maybe I have not been doing this as well as I should. We're asking everyone to practice physical distancing. That will certainly be, in fact, in our classrooms because we will have social distancing there. So that's going to reduce the capacity of our classrooms. So there'll be fewer people in there, and you'll be farther spread apart. And we're also asking all students to have a thermometer and to monitor their temperature daily, and then take the precautions that they need in order to minimize COVID-19 infection. And if they do demonstrate symptoms, then they should notify, for example, IU Health. I think, in fact, there is an app. Maybe someone else can speak to this. I'm not quite as familiar with this, but there is an app with IU Health that you can do virtual screening if you've been exposed to COVID-19, have a fever, or any of the symptoms of COVID-19. And we do ask that if you do demonstrate any of these symptoms, that you remain away from the campus and quarantine yourself for those 14 days or until you're clear beyond after symptoms.
Thank you, Doug. All right, our next question. Are the charges different for an in-person class as compared to an online class? So I'm going to ask Linda Lucas, our bursar, to take that one, please.
Thank you for the question. The answer is yes and no generally. We have always had online classes, and those classes, if they're coded as 100% online by the department and the registrar's office, have, in addition to the tuition that everybody is charged and the mandatory fees that everybody is charged, they have a distance ed course fee of $50 per credit hour. So typically a 3 credit hour class will have an additional $150 charge. The hybrid courses, as mentioned by Doug McMillan earlier, have an additional $10 per credit hour. So the additional cost is nominal for the online classes. Some of the online classes were coded by the department and the registrar's office as synchronous. And so those, even though they're online, they do not have either the distance ed course fee or the hybrid course fee.
Linda? We have a question about clarifying IU South Bend's COVID-19 testing policy. Wondering if students living in housing require testing, or if a student, staff, faculty member using campus facilities will be required to provide proof. So, and then whether students are responsible for testing fees. And so the best answer to that question right now is that details are still forthcoming. We're still working on the policy around testing, and so that please stay tuned to our FAQ page, our fall 2020 FAQ page, and we will have more information on that as soon as we can. I have another question about attending classes online if a student is isolating, perhaps because of exposure or being ill. So Doug, can you help us with that one?
Yes, I mean, if for the online courses, if someone is infected with COVID-19, but are still able, are not very ill, then of course they can continue to be attending those classes. The issue is if they're coming to campus and they in fact have tested positive for COVID-19, then, or symptoms of COVID-19, then they will be asked not to come to classes, and in fact to isolate themselves. We are working, most of our classrooms are going to be fitted with Zoom technology, so we're working on that at this point. And so we're asking all of our faculty, one, to be mindful if people are sick in this nature, and also with COVID-19, and also to work out plans with those students, and so that they can still continue in the course while they're in isolation. Perhaps this will be through Zoom or recorded videos or those type things. So we are, just as we did at the end of the spring semester, we are asking, for flexibility as from our faculty and working with students in terms of attendance policies, as well as deadlines for grading and those type of things. So yeah, there's going to be challenges, but I think working together we'll be able to meet the educational needs of our students by being flexible as we work.
Thanks, Doug. Carolyn, did you want to add to that? No. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I saw that you said you could add to that. All right, sorry. All right. All right, Doug, another one for you about education students being able to go into the public schools this year for their part of their program.
So that is details that I am not aware of as of yet, because I don't know exactly what the local school districts are going to do as in terms of this fall semester. We were able to work out accommodations for our students so they can meet those hours in the spring. And I'm absolutely sure that Hope Davis, the Dean of the School of Education, is already taking the precautions and being proactive about making sure that the students can meet those hours in terms of their work within the school systems. But we can get more information to you about that as get a little closer to the beginning of the semester and that situation becomes more clear about what the policies and procedures of our local school corporations are going to be.
Thanks, Doug. Have another question about communications on whether courses are subject to a distance learning fee during the fall semester, and that is on our FAQ page. So I encourage everyone to check that frequently as we update that with the most information, the most up-to-date information we have. So please bookmark that. Let's see.
And I can add to that a little bit. So enrollment in fully online programs and online courses where students log on to pre-recorded lectures on their own time, which is also known as 100% asynchronous courses, will be assessed the regular $50 distance education fee to support the unique technology and student services required for those courses. Those are the only courses that will have the distance education fee that I'm aware of. Doug, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, great. I have a question about student activities. What activities will there be? I'm going to ask Scott if he would be able to address questions about student activities.
We are definitely going to be having student activities occurring this fall semester and spring semester. I know right now we're in the works to try and get approval on a couple of things to happen during our Welcome Week events. And so traditionally we would have a big involvement fair. We're not going to be able to necessarily have that, but we are going to try and have at least one drive-in movie during that week. If that, we're just taking the steps to try and get that approved and making sure that we can do it safely. We plan on doing some giveaways and things like that. But to be safe, a lot of our programs are going to have to be virtual. And so I know that we're going to be doing some activities, games and activities online, such as doing like a Jackbox night for our students to be able to interact and things like that. And we're still going to try and encourage our student clubs and activities to be able to do small scale programs, but we also need to ensure that they're doing it safely. And so Maureen Muldoon, who's not on tonight, who's our special events coordinator, actually has a process where we can go through to get those approvals. And so we are going to encourage students to be creative, but also that we remain safe when we do these in-person activities. But we're also going to have a lot of opportunities to get involved online virtually.
Thank you, Scott. Let's see if Anne is on. Okay. So we have a question about accommodations for students and what requirements there might be for those that have pre-existing conditions. And so Monica, Monica Porter, our Dean of Students, maybe you can help with this question about pre-existing conditions and student requirements and attendance policies that could be adapted for those who need it.
Is Ann Drake on the call?
No, I did not see her. I was
Okay.
on her too.
She's there.
Oh, she is here?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm not, she's not.
It looks like she's under Savannah's. See?
Yep. Unmute, Ann, there you go.
Hi, yes, I'm sorry. I logged in under Savannah's login and I got her name as well. For students with pre-existing conditions, of course, it depends for each student what's going on with them, but accommodations will be put in place. We will need to discuss with each student what they need and how we can help them. But all they have to do, all the student has to do is register with the Office of Disability Services. We'll do a quick intake, and at that time we'll determine what accommodations are going to be best for that student.
Thanks, Anne.
You're welcome.
All right, I have a question about counseling available to students on campus. And I am looking for Kevin Griffith, who is director of the Student Counseling Center. If you could take that question about free counseling available to students on campus, please.
Yes. I'm sorry, the mute went back and forth on me. In terms of counseling services, we are providing counseling services free for students, as we typically do. All counseling is through Zoom Health, so still a very confidential process. Our counselors had instituted the Zoom Health counseling when the pandemic started in the spring. It's been going very well. Students have been utilizing the services. So a student would simply contact the counseling center and make arrangements for those Zoom Health services, which again are free and confidential to students.
Thanks, Kevin. Anne, I'm getting a question about clarifying students and getting accommodations. Can they just call into the office and do a brief intake, or and then they later have to submit documentation? Is that the process?
Okay, so what we do is the intake form they can fill out online. They'll send that in. At that time, if they have documentation that they can provide, they can upload it at the same time. If they do not have any documentation that they can send in right away and they can't get into the office, we can get it at a later date. We're working really closely with the students to make sure they get services. Normally, I do not do full intakes over the phone. What we'll do during this period that we're in is we do a Zoom intake as well. That gives us a better relationship, and more questions can come up for the student and myself to make sure that we're doing the best possible service for them that we can. Hope that helps.
Thank you. All right. Another academics question. Will there be any restrictions on students attending in-person instruction if they work in essential high-risk healthcare environments, like nurses or other healthcare workers who might be in our graduate programs? We are not aware of any restrictions, but outside of just students taking their required safety precautions and that are outlined in the student commitment form. So I think that will go forward. All right, please keep asking if you have more questions. I'm going to ask Doug another question about what happens after Thanksgiving. Can you be specific about the interwinter session? And what will happen during that time? I have a question about what happens after Thanksgiving. Am I finished with classes?
So, yeah, in terms of the inter-winter session, we're still doing some of the planning going on for that. So, you know, we end up our courses 3 weeks after Thanksgiving and then begin on January 19th. And so students can go right into that spring semester at this time. And so we're looking to have some courses over the winter session. But we're still in the planning phases of those.
Okay, thanks, Doug. All right, well, I think the questions are slowing down and I'm not seeing any more, but certainly going once, going twice. If anybody has anything else to ask, please do. I want to thank you all for joining us and sending in your questions. You know, we know how frustrating this is. The pandemic is changing all of our lives every day, and we understand. But we are doing our best to be nimble and provide you with the best information possible. So please continue to visit IU South Bend's Fall 2020 campus updates and FAQ websites and monitor your email for continued communications from our campus as circumstances may evolve in the weeks ahead. And as I mentioned, a recording of this event will be posted to our YouTube channel for future viewing, and we'll have virtual Q&As for the next 3 Thursdays following tonight at 5. And you're welcome to register for any or all of those. So unless there are any other questions, thank you all for joining us. Have a good night and take care.